sorry for a bit late because it took a bit more time in the closed meeting that we were involved in. There are some resolutions to vote on. Yes, very good, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk? Yes, be it resolved that the closed meeting be adjourned so that we may start up the regular meeting of Town Council, seconded by Councillor Grimard. All those in favor? Carried then. Thank you. So, do you have those resolutions in hand? I do have them here. Go ahead, Councillor Levert. Whereas the interview process was conducted in an impartial and confidential manner, and whereas Jerry Lalonde proved that he was the best candidate during the course of this interview process, be it resolved that Council hire Jerry Lalonde as Manager of Human Resources, and be it also resolved that his position be pegged at level 5 of the salary grid, and that he be paid at level 3 of class 5 of the salary grid. Be it also resolved that Rosemary Holmes be nominated. Oh, well, we have to vote on the initial resolution. The initial resolution, seconded by Councillor Berlinguet. No questions. All those in favor? Carried then. Well, I'm opposed to the initial resolution. The reason I'm opposed to this is that I would have waited that we receive the financial report before voting on this. Fine then. 2 opposed and 6 in favor. Majority wins. Go ahead, Councillor Levert, for the next resolution. Be it resolved that Rosemary Holmes be named or nominated as a member of the Public Transit Advisory Committee until the end of the current mandate of the said committee. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Questions? All those in favor? Carried then. Thank you. Next resolution to be voted on, Councillor Levert. Be it resolved that the City conduct an audit on the operations of the CIH for the years 2016, 17, and 18 at an estimated cost of $26,000. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right then. Let's go on to announcements this time around. Councillor Lalonde. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next 26th of March, of course, the Centre d'accueil Roger Séguin will host a telethon for its fundraising activities. Many guests and many activities will be held at that time. And Mrs. Simard will also attend along with her choir. Yes, I believe that Mr. Mayor, you'll be called upon to take part in this event, as well as Mr. Levert, who's the Hammond Dean Martin. Yes, he'll be there also. Other announcements? Councillor Levert? Yes, Ward 7, the Optimists will be organizing a Golden Supper, as we call it, on Friday, April the 6th at the Bourget Community Centers. Tickets are still available, but tickets are going quite quickly, but tickets are also available at the door. Thank you. Any other announcements? Go ahead. Yes, I'd like to organize I'd like to advertise the fact that this coming Sunday we'll have the annual Employees Hockey Day. Now, I'd like also to advertise that this coming Saturday in Embrun, the town of Embrun will be hosting the Francophone banquet. Let's go on now to questions or comments. If you have any questions or comments, now's the time to step up and state your name, please, and your address when you step up to the mic and address council. Now, if anybody has any comments to make, now's the time to do it. You have 3 minutes. Please give your name and your address. Yes, sir. Raymond Lalonde, 1282 Rolin Road.
Petite
A
question
question here, Mr. Mayor.
pour
We
les problèmes avec les coyotes
do
et
have
les
problems
corbeaux encore.
with crows and
Qu'est-ce qu'on
coyotes
parle
again this year, Mr. Mayor. Whom do we address our concerns? I believe you address your concerns to the Ministry of Natural Resources.
Déjà, il y avait quelqu'un à la
I
municipalité qui
thought there was
s'occupait de
someone
ça.
at the municipality level that took care of this. Well, I believe that
Non,
was
ça avait un veau qui
that
avait
involved
été volé par les
trappers.
coyotes.
No,
Ça fait
I
2,
believe
3
that
ans,
2 or 3
puis,
years ago we still had
là, c'était un problème, c'est les corbeaux
coyote-related
qui avaient les
problems.
yeux des veaux,
But we do have a
puis,
problem now because
il y a
crows
il y a un gars à
attack
Thierry, puis lui, ce qui arrive, c'est qu'il est dans le village, fait qu'il ne peut pas être tiré. Là. Je sais qu'ils sont
cattle,
protégés, là,
and
mais
actually,
force de mer, on peut être tiré.
well, coyotes actually you
Les
can
corbeaux sont protégés, mais s'ils
shoot
font
them at
du
any
dommage-
time of
s'ils
the
tuent
year.
aussi,
But crows also cause a lot
s'ils
of
font du
damage,
dommage
Mr.
sur
Mayor, you know,
ton troupeau, tu peux
to
faire
cattle,
ça.
you know.
Mais il est dans le village, fait qu'il ne peut pas tirer.
But
il peut
I
pas
have a
se
friend that's in the village. He can't shoot
Mais
them.
c'est qui serait, c'est-tu les
Who
réglementations qu'on
takes
appellerait?
care of this? Well, the Ministry of Human Resources, well, not Human Resources, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. Ministry of Natural Resources would take care of that. Certainly not Human Resources. I apologize. They'd be in charge of this. I know that they take care of coyote-related problems. How about we have nothing for that with regards to bylaw enforcement, do we? Not at the town level. Well, no, we don't, Mr. Mayor. Well, if one of your animals is killed, then you complain to the ministry and they'll repay you for damages. I thought that we had to
Moi, la dernière fois,
complain
j'étais
to the
allé, c'était
town.
juste à côté du champ
Well,
de
the last
Fortuny,
time
à
I
l'hôtel de
attended
ville, là.
was
Il y avait,
for similar type problems. I attended the bylaw enforcement office.
pardon?
You mean that
Maison
White
Blanche.
House that you
Réglementation.
entered into a couple of years ago? Yes, that housed the bylaw enforcement office. Well, there's a program that is paid by the ministry, but applications are processed by the municipality. The complaint is processed by the municipality, the bylaw enforcement office. An investigation is conducted and an application is made to the ministry for reimbursement. If this is approved, then money will be paid out to the complainant. Well, can we find out about that then? If our farmers can directly complain to the township. Well, Mr. Leon can address a letter to me directly, can send a letter to me directly, and well, we can obtain further information with regard to crows. I know that coyotes are a problem. My son has a house right behind yours, my friend, and he has the same problem. Yeah, they actually blind my cattle by
Et,
attacking
il y
the
a une
eyes.
rumeur là, qui court,
There's
là,
also
que
a
les
rumor that
municipalités, le comté, il aurait
circulates
mis un
to the effect
règlement
that
en
counties
place
would
pour
have
empêcher les coupes à
implemented
blanc.
a bylaw to prevent clear cutting. No. What happened was this. You see, the United Counties had the power to put an end to clear cutting. Now, they gave power to those municipalities that wish to have that same power. 4 municipalities prevailed themselves of that privilege. Clarence and Rockland is one of those. Now, we'll have to revise the clear cutting bylaw. It's a lengthy process. We'll adopt it next year, and we'll tackle it the same way we did with the firefighting bylaw that we adopted. We'll invite the public at public hearings. We'll sit down with everyone involved and come up with a bylaw that will please everyone. The only thing that we did was that we took it upon ourselves to seize the power offered to us. Well, why would we get involved in that, Mr. Mayor? That should be managed by the province. Well, the province doesn't have any law to this effect. Well, because the province doesn't need it, obviously. Now, Clarence and Rockland will have a bylaw. Plantagenet and Alfred will have its own separate bylaw. No, they won't have their bylaw because they didn't accept to
Vous voulez protéger les arbres, vous voulez
take the power
protéger la
conferred upon
province,
them. But you see,
pas par
you want to
municipalité.
protect trees. Raymond, we'll sit down with you
Ouais, mais dans
guys
ce
to
cas-là,
talk
moi,
about
je
this.
trouve que c'est une
Well, I
discussion
find,
qu'on
Mr.
aurait
Mayor, that
qu'on n'a pas besoin.
we should. These are discussions that we are entering into that we
J'aimerais
don't
ça,
need to
faire partie
enter
de ce
into.
comité.
I'd like to be part of this committee. No problem. I'll give you a call because and ask you to take part in this. Nothing has been decided at this point in time. And the bylaw
J'ai-tu fini mon temps?
is not. Have I, has my time expired, Mr. Mayor? Well, as long as you don't have another
Je n'ai bien, mais
15
va-
minutes
va
worth, well,
limiter.
I do have a lot of subjects to broach, but
Je
I'll
sais pas si tu te
limit
rappelles, ça va
myself
passer
to the
avec
time allotted to me.
Charles Lalonde.
I don't recall,
Jean-Marc Lalonde.
but when
ex-président
you
des
knocked at my
élections,
door
puis
at
vous
election
aviez-
time last time
ça
around,
allait,
and you
c'était le chemin Rollin,
appeared
la
with Jacques
priorité.
Lalonde,
Ça doit faire
and
16 ans, tout ça.
well, about 16
On n'a
years
rien
ago,
fait
and his
encore.
priority,
L'an
you
passé,
stated that your
quand
priority
je suis
then
venu pour
was
la fête du
Rollin
feu,
Road. Last
je
year,
savais-
I appeared before you, and I
C'était
talked to
une
you,
joke,
but it was
parce
a
que le
joke,
club de Légion
really,
avait donné 2000
because the
piastres,
Lions
j'avais dit, je
Club
pensais
had
que c'était pour de la roche,
given
pour le chemin Rollin,
2,000 bucks.
puis
I
il
thought
m'avait
it
dit,
was gravel.
on va
It was
s'occuper
earmarked
du
for
chemin
gravel
Rollin
to
cette
be
année. On
put
part de
on
Villeneuve jusqu'à
Rollin Road.
17.
This
On
year,
met
we're
de la
talking about
roche, puis on
Villeneuve
fait
right up
Fossette.
to Highway 17. You're putting
Il y a-
on
il y avait
gravel, and
tendu
you're
un petit peu
working
de roche.
the ditches a little bit
ça-
along there. But
c'est
they've
pas fort.
spread down a bit
Moi,
of
là,
gravel,
qu'est-ce qui
but
arrive,
not
c'est
all
que
that much,
vous avez
Mr. Mayor.
passé
But
avec
what's
les-
happening is this now.
la pelle, puis le rasoir,
You've gone
puis
by
puis toutes les
with
branches,
the,
les arbres qui
shovel
étaient dans les fossés, ça, c'est bon,
and,
ça nettoie. Sauf que ça reste là.
the weed
Puis là,
cutter.
le
That's
fossé se
fine. But what
remplit. Là,
happens
l'eau,
is that
elle
no
passe plus, elle
further
va
work
chez
is done,
nous.
and
La passe au
the
travers du champ,
ditch
là.
is filled up. And what's
À cause que
happened
le
now
fossé
is
est
that
rempli.
the
Ce fossé-là,
ditch is
la dernière fois, c'est lui qui
over-
l'avait fait.
flown, and
Puis ça fait 20 ans. au
it's
moins.
overfilled
C'est-
now, and water has spread onto my land. It's
Je-
spilled
Christophe,
over onto my land.
j'ai parlé à
Now,
Christophe,
I
elle m'a dit
spoke
que vous
to
aviez
Krista, who
des
told
projets
me
pour
that
faire
you do
quelque
have
chose avec le chemin Rollin.
projects. You do have an intent to do something
ben, c'est
in
correct.
mind there.
Parce que j'ai pas grand
Yeah,
temps,
I
moi.
spoke to one of the town employees, and apparently
Là-
we've got something in the
Là,
works.
c'est
Well, I
ça.
don't have
Là,
much
que
time
Christa
here,
m'a
Mr.
dit
Mayor,
que
but
vous aviez des
Krista
projets
has told
pour
me that
faire
you had,
du pavage.
you thought you might
Je voudrais aussi que,
pave
vous,
part
que les gens qui font
of
les
this
décisions
roadway.
à
I'd
propos
like
des
that
chemins,
those
qui
people that
pensent
make
un peu,
decisions with regards to road
qu'est-ce que
maintenance
vous avez
to
fait du chemin
think
du Quai?
ahead
Ça
a
a coûté
tad
combien
bit. Now, what
d'argent,
did you
ça?
do on Duquette
Puis il faut
Road?
faire, vous
How much
recommencez,
did
parce
that
qu'à
cost
Calvert,
us? You
ça
have
change.
to
Vous aviez des
start
pelles là
work
pendant
over
2 ans
again
de
because
temps,
you have to
qui ont travaillé sur ce
rework the
chemin-là. Vous
culvert
n'avez pas
work that
changé
was
à Calvert.
previously done.
Et
And you
Dieu a
had 2
changé.
shovels
Vous aviez
there, but
changé
you
à
didn't
Calvert.
change the culvert.
La
Which
coulée, je te dis le
culvert?
perron.
Well, around Perron.
C'est à
Around
Calvert,
Perron,
vous
that
avez
culvert
changé.
that
On va
you
la
worked on.
changer.
You
Vous avez
need to,
posé des
you know,
rails,
you
vous avez
installed
posé trop
rails.
proche, vous avez
Those
fait
rails
arracher,
were
vous avez fait...
put in too close. Well, if the culvert has been looked into, well, I was asked that particular question, Mr. Mayor,
Passez large.
but the culvert is not wide enough. Well, it's not
c'est
wide
ça.
enough.
Mais le calvret même
The-
en tout,
the culvert-
Elle a fallu que je suis d'accord avec toi, elle a fallu que ça soit plus large.
I
Donc,
agree with
comment
you
ça a
that
coûté pour les
the
railings
ditch
chaque bord?
should
Vous
have
aviez
been
mis
wider.
Calvert,
Well,
ça
how
aurait
much
fait le
would
tour,
it have
ça aurait
cost
été
to
fini.
put in railings
Là,
on
c'est une
either
ligne.
side? You put
Là,
in
faut céder. Ça a jamais
a
arrivé.
culvert in there, and now
J'achève juste un petit peu.
we've
Vous,
got a
quand on
problem
détache
here.
un terrain, quand on
So I have
achète un
one
terrain,
other
on
question.
vend
When
le
we're
terrain,
severing
vous nous demandez
a property or selling off a property, you're asking us a minimum allowance of 66 feet along the frontage of the road or
Pourquoi, quand
along
vous faites
existing
des
roadways,
chemins,
so that
quand
the
vous
municipality
recommencez
has
quelque chose, vous ne le
access?
faites pas tout de suite la bonne
Why
affaire. Là,
don't
les
you
trains Lavache,
initially,
pour se promener avec les machines. Baseline, ça fait
you know,
dur.
selling when you're
faut que tu checkes en
selling
haut de la côte,
property,
les temps,
selling
ben non, elle a
the
le
proper
doute, puis là, s'il y a
frontage.
le
I
short,
mean,
ça
if
vient,
there's a
mais pas
car
pas.
oncoming
Là,
right
si
now,
ça
the
vient,
way
ben,
things stand,
tough, là.
you don't have enough, especially around baseline. You don't have enough
Ouais.
sufficient space to allow 2 cars to go by comfortably, or much less 2 tractors, especially if you're a farmer.
C'est ça.
Well, that's the problem. You know, though some guys have combines,
combine, ça
well,
va
a
équipe pareil.
combine measures 20 by 20,
Et
but
le
some
chemin,
have
il est
50
pas assez large.
Some measure 50 feet in
Mais vous
width,
avez travaillé là-dessus, vous avez mis de l'argent,
but
ça
you've
Ouais, on l'a
Saint-Pierre,
remonté,
in a
Saint-Pierre
lot-
est passé.
position qui était que des
a
années
lot of
passées.
work in there, but you haven't resolved
C'est la
anything.
première année
Well,
que vous le fermez pas.
this is the first year, by the way, they haven't closed out or closed that roadway. Well, I can tell you that Baseline is in much better shape now than it was beforehand. Yeah, but you can't go by there if you're a farmer. Let's go back to Rollins Road. In effect, we're thinking of, well, there's a culvert-related project that will be implemented before putting in any of the culverts there. That's in between Duquette and Baseline? Yes. Well, final work is forecast in 2025, 2026. If I take a look at our 10-year plan, 10-year forecast. Now, work to be done, immediate work to be done will be in between Baseline and Highway 17. If someone takes a look at Baseline, going towards Duquette on Rollins Road. This gentleman is right there. Hasn't been work done there for quite a while. From the curb right onto the first house past Mr. Lalonde's house. Well, there's Rollin onto Highway 17 and then Rollin onto Baseline. I understand. Going from the old Highway 17 to the existing Highway 17 has all been done. It's going to be redone. Well, there's surface treatment that's been applied there in between old Highway 17 and Highway 17. Yes, to ensure a longer durability to the surface of that particular roadway. Well, you know, years ago, we started off from Duquette right up to the hilly area. Part of the hill onto Baseline has not been worked on all that much. Mr. Lalonde is quite right when he states that ditches there need to be cleaned up. Can we do this year? Well, Mr. Mayor, it's minor detail, but I read in newspapers that there's a group that got together for the St. Felix roadway, and apparently they addressed council and you came up with money to do work there. Well, there was already a provision in the budget for this to happen. And next year they say that they'll be suing you. But, you know, Mr. Mayor, you're elected by us to represent you. Look, we have 200 kilometers of roadway to take care of. We can't do everything overnight. That's out of the question. Unless, you know, we raise taxes by 20% to fix everything up, and even then we'd be short of money. But when you got elected the first time around, you said, don't even think about this roadway being asphalted. We have $3 million to perform work on necessary work on roadway. We need actually 4. But you've done some work on Baseline. Yes, we've for years now. I stated that if we put surface treatment there, we'd save on maintenance costs because every time there was heavy rainfall, we suffered. Now with surface treatment that protected roads, well, you can obtain money with a low interest rate right now. You have this gentleman who's aware of provincial dealings. Why don't you just take money and do something good or worthwhile? Now, we were told that there are some roadways that will be worked on, but not in our neck of the woods. Well, let's take a look at. Well, you see, Guy, that's why some folks appear in front of town council and they're angry. Look, there are a whole bunch of roadways that were done, a whole bunch of stretches of road. We can only do so much. And Aurelia Road on the other side was worked on. Baseline Road was done. Old Highway 17 was also worked on. Well, you spread the gravel there. No, we've applied surface treatment there. Oh, okay. Well, that's, again, in 5 years, well, it's patch-up work. Yeah, but it's better than nothing. It's funny because people on that road were quite satisfied with that surface treatment. Well, it was much better than it was beforehand. Well, there you go. It's much better than it was beforehand. But what happens? There's nothing being done. Well, there's nothing done. We've only got so much money to work with. Well, just borrow money, borrow more money, and do things right. Well, come on. Come on now. We're paying mean average tax bill of $5,000 on Rollin Road. Why? To have the grader go by there a couple of times during the summertime and clear the snow during the wintertime. Look, you've got garbage collection, police services. Well, you pick up garbage once a week for $5,000. What can I tell you, Raymond? Let's take a look at the situation and we'll do something. That's all I can tell you. That's fine then. I'll appear before council again then. I don't have much time to waste, you know, going before council, but I'll do so. Well, can I ask questions as to this? I thought that the onus was upon residents to clean up ditches. No. Each and every year I pick up, you know, fallen leaves during the fall or during the autumn. Well, no. But really, we're not just talking about a couple of fallen leaves here. We're talking about branches in the ditch. Good evening. My name is Sophie Lalonde. I live at 841 Lacroix Road on Hammond. I don't know if I can talk about daycare costs. Now, I'm just wondering how you justify the increases. I think for the past year, we've had 2 increases with regards to daycare services. I'm dealing with Saint-Mathieu Daycare Center here in Hammond. I'm representing those
je voulais juste savoir un peu comment
preschool
on
children whose
justifiait.
parents are asking the same question, and how you like to how you would justify such an increase. Well, it's a great question. Council has sought self-financing options for these centers. Last year, services incurred close to $500,000 loss. Now, we had to justify, in keeping with the study that was commissioned, services offered, those costly services, the most expensive services that are offered, preschool services, preschool children and kindergarten age school children that need services. Now, we had to increase rates on an average by approximately 11% to balance the budget for the coming year.
Mon
Well,
petit
fine.
coco était dans les bambins, donc dans un local qui était adapté
Well,
pour
my
ses besoins.
child,
En septembre, il y avait 2
special
ans et demi, ils l'ont
needs
monté dans le groupe
child,
préscolaire. Donc, un local qui était utilisé par des enfants de 9 ans à
and
12
he
ans.
was in the toddlers,
Donc,
and
quand on est
then
arrivé
he
la
was,
première journée que
as he grew older, he
j'ai
was
laissé Lucas à la
placed in
garderie,
a
il y avait des trous
school
dans les murs. La toilette n'est pas adaptée,
service
il n'est pas
or
encore
services
adapté pour
offered.
son niveau d'âge.
Now,
Le lavabo, les 2
There
lavabos
are
qui sont dans le
holes in
local
the
non
wall
plus.
in the venue that he's
Et sans parler
in.
de la cour dans
It's
laquelle il doit
dirty,
jouer.
and
Donc,
the
sur
toilet
un
doesn't
terrain
doesn't
peut-être,
work
moi j'appelle ça
all
plus un
that
enclos.
much.
Donc,
And
il
he's
y a à
called
peu
upon
près,
to,
je pourrais dire,
along with his
de 8
fellows
pieds
there,
par
to
20 pieds de
play in
gazon,
a
qui sont
stretch of about
16 à
8
jouer
by
dans ce
20
terrain-là,
feet
puis un petit carré de sable.
of
Je comprends que
available
ton établi,
space
faut
and
que
a
tu
small
augmentes à cause du
sandbox.
déficit.
I know
Mais pour
that
moi, mon service a diminué
my
de qualité.
services
Je parle pas des éducatrices,
services
au contraire.
received
Je parle juste du
reduced
niveau
in
des
quality. I'm not
installations
talking about
pour
educational
la
services,
garderie.
but just the
Donc, en tant que parent,
installations
je vois pas
themselves.
pour mon
As a
enfant.
parent that
Puis je me dis,
brings
c'est la même chose quand mes élèves viennent dans ma classe. Si moi aussi, je
her
laisse des
child
choses
there,
aller,
if
je suis pas sûre qu'ils
I
vont
have
se
to
sentir bien.
make sure
Moi, en
that
tant
the
que
venue
parent,
that I bring my child to
j'apprécie
is
pas que mon petit coco puisse
is
pas aller se laver les mains
sanitary
lui-même ou aller à la
and
toilette
conducive
lui-même
to
non plus.
proper learning. Well, firstly, we were given 2 options, and this is a recommendation stemming from town administration. With regards to the 11% increase, I just would like to make sure that the council was not the only body that decided upon this, but we received those recommendations from everyone. Either we were to cut services or increase the amount of money. But we had to offset the $500,000 or $200,000 shortfall that we'd incurred. Now, what you alluded to, I alluded to the St. Mathieu venue. Is the school taking care of the classroom environment there? Well, I believe that I'll be called upon to sit down with the Sophie and other parents and contact the appropriate authorities to follow up on this. Are we aware of any other venues that are in such a shape also? The reason I'm asking this question is that it might be a proper time now to revise the state, the physical state of those venues. Well, those daycare centers are in schools, and the school boards are mandated by the government to bring up those venues up to government standards. If they don't meet government standards, then the onus is upon us to compel them to do so. Now, with regards to the washroom facilities, I was not aware that they were in poor shape, as the young lady has just stated. Now, with regards to the size, however, it meets government standards. I understand the lady's concerns, and we'll bring those up to the school board. And that's part of the regular management practices that are carried out by the school board. Well, Luca has attended this venue since September. And have you alerted the daycare administrators of this situation? They said yes. Well, yes. And there are holes in the wall, you say, ma'am? Well, the plaster covering has been torn off, and the educators has tried to cover those holes with big posters to try and camouflage things. This room was
parascolaire.
used for
Donc, c'est sûr que la grosse porte, elle a été enlevée. Par contre,
other
la toilette était
activities.
dangereuse
There was a
pour les
big
enfants,
door that
c'était
was
sûr que la était
removed
lourde.
because it was
Mais je veux dire,
dangerous when children going
côté
to the
lavabo,
washroom.
là,
This
maintenant, ils ont un escalier
doorway
pour aller laver
leading
leurs mains, là, tu
to
sais.
the washroom
Donc,
was a bit
je peux dire,
dangerous for
ça a pas-
children, so
c'est pas
that's
esthétiquement-
so they have to
je
climb
trouvais que c'était pas esthétiquement beau,
a flight of
attrayant
stairs
pour
now
les
to
enfants, que
wash
je dois laisser mon coco laver
their
tous les jours.
hands. I don't
Là,
think
on se
it's
dit que là, on a une augmentation. Si, mais
it's
en tant que
conducive
parent,
for
il y a une
children,
augmentation. Là, au mois de septembre, je pense qu'on en a
to
une, là,
attend
on en a une
these
autre, puis
facilities
on voit pas
right
de
now,
dégradation
and
qui se fait. Donc, je me dis, moi,
as of
tu sais, on se dit, pour la
September,
qualité du service,
we
pour
were told
l'instant, je
that
vois
things
pas où
should
la qualité du
improve,
service. Je parle
but
pas de les étiquettes
from a
que je
parent's
vais côté,
standpoint,
là,
and I'm not
c'est
talking
comme
about services we
aujourd'hui, ça fait
receive,
2 jours que je vais chercher mon petit coco, puis on
but,
s'entend quand je parle de gazon,
you know,
c'est
I've
pas vraiment du gazon, là. Il est couvert de
picked
boue
up my
complètement,
child
d'autres
since
endroits
he's
où
been
aller
attending
jouer,
that
soit le
venue, and he
carré
has
sable ou la
no
boue. Donc, il y a, tu sais, il y a tout ce
proper
moment-là.
space to play,
Pas
available
vraiment la
space to
seule.
play in along with
Je
his
suis
young
avec une autre maman aussi de
colleagues
Saint-Mathieu.
there.
Il y a beaucoup d'autres mamans qui n'ont pas pu
I'm
venir,
not
des
just
parents aussi, que je me dis,
talking
quand on
about
fait
my
une
plight,
augmentation
but
fraîche, je pense que c'est
other parents'
justifié.
plights
Pourquoi
that
qu'on
are
ait
also
une visite,
using
mais de
this
l'autre côté,
area.
si
Of
on-
course, I
si
understand
on
that
fait
you
pas
are
ça,
incurring a
c'est ça.
deficit, but our youngsters have to attend this place.
Ce que j'en
Monsieur
fais,
Boucher.
c'est deux problèmes
Well,
complètement séparés.
I've heard about
Nous, on
this
n'est pas
situation, but now I figure
des
we're
argents
talking about
injectés
two
pour
different
des
problems. We're not
opérations
held
qui sont
responsible
faites
for those
par le
money,
conseil
for
scolaire.
this money that's
Fait qu'ils ont une
injected,
réserve du
put
loyer
into
qu'on
this
fait, qui sert
project.
pour améliorer
School
les
board, the
services.
school board
Oui, on peut
manages
faire ces étapes-là
this
pour adresser les préoccupations de madame.
money.
Par contre, c'est pas inclus dans le déficit budgétaire
But
opérationnel.
these
L'opération,
amounts of money are not
c'est pour les
included in
opérations
our
et non pour les
operational
déficits
budget
ensemble.
deficit.
Fait que
We're
dans les
dealing
deux
with,
qu'elle a
from an
mentionné,
operational
on va
standpoint of what's
adresser
going
celle
on
des
in there.
rénovations.
We'll certainly address renovation problems.
Well,
Well, especially if you have holes in the wall. Definitely these have to be repaired. Or the school board needs to look into this.
Le plâtre qui est arraché avec les
Well,
jouets,
you
mais
know,
est-ce que
aesthetically, from an aesthetic standpoint, Mr. Mayor, it's not all that nice.
On va faire le suivi avec eux.
Mr. Levat is going to follow this up. Can we not enter into an arrangement with the school board? We closed Le Carrousel. We have, and there are small washrooms, and what are we going to do with the equipment that was at La Carrousel? We're not going to keep that for adults' use. Let me be honest with you, Mr. Levat. The school board has treated us quite well. However, we're dealing with one of the biggest Francophone school boards. We're dealing with one of the biggest Francophone school boards in the immediate area here, and often when we're making a request of one sort or another, it takes quite often a few weeks that this request be dealt with. And let's not forget also that these schools in our area are not recent. We're not talking about recent buildings. The Hammond School is close to 100 years
Est-ce que je
old.
peux me permettre juste de
Can you allow me
d'ajouter?
one
Mon nom, c'est
comment?
Eliane
My
Amiotto.
name
Je
is
suis au
Eliane
2664 rue Bouvier.
I live at
Je suis aussi
2264
parent,
Bouvier
d'un
Street,
enfant
and
au
I'm
Bambin et
also
au
a
préscolaire à
parent of
Hammond.
a toddler.
Et puis, à mon
preschool
avis,
child that
moi,
attends
je
the
sens
Hammond,
que vous êtes en train de relancer la balle au
daycare.
CSD-CEO. Puis je pense
think
pas
that
que c'est
you're
leur
throwing the ball
responsabilité d'avoir
to
à débourser
CSDEO
certaines des
folks. I
parties
don't
de
think it's
l'installation dont
incumbent
on
upon them
parle.
to pay
Parce que
anything
quand on parle
to
que c'est,
revamp
des
those
choses
installations
peut-être
that
qui
need
ont
to
été
be
endommagées par
revamped.
les
When we're
enfants
talking
de
about
la
things that
garderie,
are
là, ça devrait
damaged
être à
by
vos frais, ça devrait
daycare
plus être aux
center
frais.
children,
Je pense que
you should
c'est
pay for
probablement ce que le
those.
CSD-CO
And
vont vous dire. Ils vont vous relancer la balle,
what
vous
the
allez
school
leur
board
relancer,
will
puis ça se réglera pas. ce
say is that it's
problème-là.
your fault, and
Puis
you'll
ce que
say it's
moi,
their
ce qui me
fault.
préoccupe, c'est vraiment la
What
hausse des
I'm
prix
preoccupied with
pour
is
la
the
garderie.
increase
Parce
of
que la
prices
garderie,
with
il
regard
faut
to
s'entendre,
daycare
c'est très cher, c'est plus cher que notre
services.
hypothèque, là.
Our
Donc, il faut
daycare
s'entendre que quand je
services
vois une
cost
hausse
us
de
more
prix comme ça,
than
ça fait
our
2 fois dans la
mortgage
même année, ben ça m'inquiète.
does.
Puis je me demande où
Now,
et
we've,
comment c'est dépensé
you know,
cet argent-là. Donc j'aimerais
we've
savoir
been
à quel point,
victimized by two
comment
increases in the
s'informer par
past
rapport
year,
au
and
budget,
we're wondering
comment
where
est-ce que
that
ça
money
fonctionne,
goes
pourquoi est-ce
to,
que ça a été
and
augmenté
why
comme ça si rapidement.
were fees increased so quickly, all at once. Well, I have no problem in
Je peux vous lancer des
giving this lady all the supporting documents with regard to the increases that she requires.
Quand
There's
vous
no
dites
problem.
que vous allez donner la balle, vous allez
Well,
demander au CSD-CO de réparer
if
les
you're going to
installations,
ask the school
est-ce
board
que
to
c'est-
repair the
est-ce que-
installations,
est-ce
the
qu'on
venue,
considère que ce sont des choses qui ont été faites pendant que la garderie
are you going to
était
ask
là,
them
ou
to
bien ce sont des
repair
demandes
damages
que la
that
garderie
were
a besoin, comme des enfants
done
qui sont plus
during
jeunes,
the
que c'est
time
votre
in which
clientèle.
they
C'est
took
notre
over
clientèle,
this
je devrais dire,
venue,
parce que
or
c'est
prior to
C'est
them
notre
taking over the
clientèle et
venue.
non
But
celle du
it's
CSD-CEO qui utilise le local.
our
Habituellement,
children
quand
make
on
use
loue
of
un
this
local,
venue
l'installation,
and
parce qu'on a besoin, c'est nous qui
not
l'avons pas.
school board
Donc, je
people.
pense que c'est un
So
peu
I
ce qu'ils
think
vont nous dire.
that the school board
On est
will
d'accord.
tell us that. No, ma'am, I don't think so. Just to answer your concern, firstly, no employee stemming from our services can work on school board premises. Now, this has to be approved by the school board and not by the municipality per se. They're the ones that authorize work, they hire contractors, they perform the renovation that needs to be performed, the renovation work. If we have to adapt washroom facilities to the needs of some children, then the school board does that. At no time will the city of Clarence and Rockland be compelled to do any work on the daycare grounds. If Mr. Boucher would have been held responsible to perform any work on the daycare at the daycare center venue, it would have been done a long time ago. Let me tell you that he's a town employee. Now, the school board does cooperate with us. However, as far as this situation goes, I don't know where things are at. But when we bring deficiencies to the school board's attention, they take care of those deficiencies right away. Well, certainly, we'll make the school board aware of what you made us aware of. I'd just like this to be brought back to our attention at the next meeting. Let me just add that by the same time, when we voted on the rate increase, we did agree that there was a deficit, but I had no idea that the classrooms used were in such poor shape. Well, that has nothing to do with the deficit. Well, I know that. But when we voted on the increase of rates, we voted on this for the purpose of incurring or winding up with a zero-sum deficit. Well, let me tell you, however, that as a parent, we had to come to grips with very high increases. There are some private daycare centers that cost us much less. In Limoges, for example, students or children pay $30 per day. $10 or $15 less than what we're called upon to pay for the children of similar age. Or if they can make ends meet in Limoges, for example, and don't not incur a deficit at the end of the year, then why would the case not apply also to those attending the same daycare centers? I know it doesn't concern. Well, you see, the meetings are televised. If you take a look at the televised meetings, and 3 months from now, not one of us around this table will say that this was a good idea. Mr. Boucher went through crunched the numbers, and we had no other choice. There's a part of the deficit that's been offset by grants that we do receive. If we didn't receive any grants, the increase would be much higher. One at a time, please. Sir, you're going to wait for your turn. We would like that installation be brought up to spec, basically. Mr. Mayor, I'm totally in agreement with you, especially since this has been in existence. This situation has prevailed since the month of September. Especially since I've brought my young one for the past, well, he's 2.5 years. Of course, I put my youngster, who's 2.5 years old there, and a child in its developing years evolves in an environment, or should involve in an educationally conducive environment. Well, let me tell you, ma'am, next time around, just phone your ward rep directly, Councillor Lalonde. How many children do we have in Saint-Mathieu? Preschool, approximately 16 preschoolers, and toddlers, about 10 toddlers. So we have 26 children attending
Le conseil scolaire doit
venue.
nous fournir
Definitely,
des
the school
locaux
board has to
adéquats.
supply us with
Mais
adequate
si ça rencontre pas ce que
venue.
nous autres à s'en occuper, par
But if
exemple,
they don't do
de dire au
so,
conseil
it
scolaire,
behooves us
parce
to
que
say
ça
to
serait
town
un
count to the
locataire
school
dans une
board,
maison
it's just like a
privée,
tenant
la
in a private
responsabilité
house.
de la ça devient à la municipalité de
It is
s'assurer
incumbent upon
parce
the
que
municipality
l'ouvrage est
to
fait en sorte que
ensure
c'est la municipalité qui envoie
that
les employés faire les
the
réparations.
tenants live
Dans le
in
cas d'une école, c'est-
in a proper environment.
Un inspecteur.
I don't believe that
Mais depuis septembre,
inspectors, I believe that the inspector hasn't inspected that area last September. Well, each and every year, the Ministry of Education performs an inspection there. Well, since they moved in that particular room, and since these ladies have told us that the washroom facilities are not adequate, well, they went by there, I believe. Well, did they not mention that this was not adequate? Well, I don't even think that a 3-year-old child can reach the drinking fountain that is there. They have to climb up 1 or 2 stairs to
Non, mais ce que je viens d'en dire, c'est
reach the drinking fountain.
l'inspection a
Well,
passé, puis
how
ça est
come
encore là depuis septembre.
this was passed for inspection and cleared? Well, Mr. Levad, let me tell you that the inspections carried out are some of the most severe type of inspections that I'm aware of. I understand that. And the criteria set out by the government need to be respected, adhered to. If these changes are not implemented, then the situation is clearly looked into. However, I do agree with what the lady stated. Were they present at the time in which the inspection was carried out? Were school officials or school board officials there? I do not know. Let me just say is that I'll sit down with the Saint-Mathieu parents. A lot of follow-up work has been undertaken with the school board. I'll contact them again tomorrow, and I'll just sit down with the parents again to make sure that I have things right. And we'll obtain a report at the next meeting to determine where things are heading. Yes. Has this request been made in writing, by the way? Yes. I've addressed this situation as of September. Well, the onus is upon us to do so. But as a parent,
On va laisser M.
let
Boucher s'en
Mr. Boucher take care of this situation. I'm very sorry about this.
Mon nom c'est
My
André
name is
Chartrand, je
André
trouve
Chartrand.
l'élèverie à Bourgette.
On
J'ai,
Bourgette,
deux
I have 2
enfants,
children,
et puis, ils ont
and they
commencé à
started
aller à la
to
garderie
attend
à
the
Clarence.
Clarence
Puis,
Rockland
on a
Daycare
remarqué
Center,
que
and
la
we
cour d'école
noticed
était vraiment grande.
that the schoolyard was
Puis ensuite, j'ai eu ma petite Zoé
quite
qui a été
big
à
for their
Bourgette.
needs.
Vraiment, la cour d'école, on
Zoe,
peut
my
sortir,
child
s'amuser
in
dehors,
Bourgette,
vraiment grand.
had
Mon
a
petit gars
lot
est
of
encore
play
à
space
Hammond,
there.
puis il y a
My
une affaire qu'on a
child
remarqué tout de
attends
suite,
the
c'est la
Hammond
cour en
venue,
place,
and the
les
first
jeux, c'est
thing
vraiment-
that we noticed is
Puis,
the
une autre
yard
inquiétude que j'ai, c'est que les
facilities that are
éducatrices
quite small.
qui font un travail excellent. Je veux
The
dire, c'est comme, il y a
educators
pas de prix, là, je
do
veux
a
dire, pour le
great
travail qu'ils font,
work,
là,
by
je
the
veux dire,
way.
ils
I'm
sont
not
super,
criticizing
c'est
their
comme,
work.
il y a pas de mots
They're
pour
doing
expliquer le travail
super
qu'ils font.
work.
Mon
But
inquiétude,
my
c'est
worry,
qu'à
my
Hammond, quand
concern
ils vont
is this,
jouer, ils ont
is
des
that
grandes marches
they
à
have to,
descendre aussi.
the children
Puis
have
c'est
to
comme,
go
j'allais
down
chercher mon petit gars, puis c'est
huge
comme, je peux
steps before
m'imaginer
going onto the
trois madames qui
playground.
descendent avec soit un
And
groupe de
I've
15
noted
enfants descendre
3
avec
or
les marches.
4
Les risques de blessures sont
teachers or
comme, à
educators
mon avis,
accompanying
sont là,
children
je veux dire. Puis
going
la courbe
down
comme
the
telle est
steps.
vraiment
The
petite.
risk
Où c'est
of
qu'on se
injury
gars,
is
fait que
quite
c'est comme,
high.
c'est juste pour.
I-
Je veux dire, j'étais venu pour la présentation, mais je veux dire, Madame s'est levée.
I
je supportais
attended, I was here in attendance and in support of these 2 ladies that addressed council previous to my addressing you.
Surtout si c'est de la boue.
Is there anything that we can do with Mr. Boucher concerning the backyard facility of this particular venue? I know it's very small, Mr. Mayor. It's tiny as tiny goes.
Nous, on peut pas faire
Well,
de changement, ça doit être
We
effectué
can't
par-
perform any
Mais
changes. We
par contre,
can't
on peut,
make any changes.
On va faire
However, we'll definitely follow up with these people.
Lors des élections des représentants, c'est comment ils sont élus? Oui. On devrait peut-être commencer à parler avec M.
Might be advisable.
envoyer une lettre à M. Lemay,
Well,
qui est
you
conseiller,
should send a letter to Mr. LeMay, who is school trustee there, and if the school board is involved in all of this. And let's see the contents of the report that we'll obtain in 2 weeks from now, following your comments, and, because we're going to start moving on this tonight. Any other questions or comments?
Salut, Patrick Boularis au 18-17
Patrick
Bouvier.
Boularis.
Je suis là
1017 Bulletis. I'm in attendance with regards to daycare increases also. What concerns me more than anything else is waste. I have 2 children at the daycare center. Each and every month I receive my bill in an envelope along with a printed invoice and another envelope with another invoice. That's each and every month for both of my children. And last month I received 12 sheets of paper in the span of 1 week for different activities that my children will be registered for, should be registered for. Now we're in the living in an age of electronic means of communication. Why should we waste paper on doing things like that, on advising parents like that? It must be an enormous cost incurred by the City of Clarence and Rockland. The City of Clarence and Rockland must incur a tremendous cost to put things in an envelope, to stuff paper or documents in an envelope. Well, that's an excellent suggestion, and we'll forward that suggestion to our department heads. We might go electronic on some things that we send out. That's fine. All right, then. Any other questions? That's it. Well, thank you very much, folks. Let's go on now to members' items. Mr. Guillemard. Be it resolved that town administration be mandated to revise the Environment Advisory Committee's mandate so that we may better reflect the municipality's needs. Seconded by Councillor Zant. All those in question? Thank you then. Consent items. Are there any items that you'd like to withdraw from the list? 10.3 sub B. Yes. Mrs. Simard, do you have anything else to withdraw? Yeah, well, be it resolved that the following items identified under consent items during the course of the regular meeting of Town Council, 21st of March, should be adopted. 10.1, adoption of the minutes of the following meetings. A, regular meeting of March the 5th, 2018, and B, Committee of the Whole of March the 5th, 2018. 10.2, receipt of the minutes of the following meetings. A, minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee of September 19th, 2017, and 10.3, the following recommendations from Committee of the Whole of March 5th, 2018. A, resolution to support the town of Essex in regard to school properties in case of closure, and B, or should I say D, resolution to adopt the itemized statement of remuneration and expenses paid in 2017 as per Section 284 of the Municipal Act 2001, and E, resolution to adopt the cash handling policy number FIN 18-01. Item 10.4, resolution to recognize Clarence Rockland Country Jamboree as an event of municipal significance, and 10.5, resolution to adopt the salaries paid from January 28, 2018 to February 24, 2018 in the gross amount of $881,331.99 and net amount of $650,601.46. All those in favor? Carried then. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Guillemard. All those in favor? Carried then. All right. 10.3 sub B. Be it resolved that the City of Clarence and Rockland support the resolution of the town of Lakeshore requesting that that profits stemming from marijuana tax or the revenue be allocated directly to the City of Clarence and Rockland. Questions? Don't start any rumors. I believe that requesting that the marijuana tax revenue be given to us directly. We're talking about controlled substances, and we're cutting the legs under the black marketers. You know, we're just... Do you think that cigarettes have stopped? The sale of cigarettes has stopped the sale of cigarettes? No, because the taxes on cigarettes are too high. Excuse me, let me just finish here. We're talking about provincial and federal taxes. We're not taking into account municipal tax. Imagine if we were to add on a municipal tax to this. We can't add municipal tax to it. Well, we just want a portion of the tax that already imposed on this substance. The province will obtain its portion, and the federal government will obtain its portion. Well, look, we receive an invoice each and every year from the provincial government.
cause de la drogue, là, de la
you know,
marijuana, là.
and they'll get,
Parce que la boisson, c'est-
look,
c'est
they'll obtain a
légal,
lot
je
of money
suis
because of
d'accord avec
marijuana.
toi. Mais prendre 3 bières,
Alcohol, I'm in
c'est
agreement
légal,
with you.
char,
Take 2 or
c'est pas
3
légal,
beers or
mais quand
4
c'est fait de la
beers
maison,
is
on
illegal.
dit.
The same rule applies with marijuana, but it's already illegal to drive under the effect of marijuana, under the influence of marijuana. The same applies to alcohol. Now, when they talked about decriminalizing the substance, they stated the following. The police were complaining too much about the paperwork involved or arresting people for marijuana possession. And the police officers were behind this initial movement. They asked that this substance be decriminalized so that they wouldn't get caught up in bringing these people continuously in front of the courts. Now, this being said, if taxes are too high, all I'm getting at, Mr. Mayor, is that everyone wants a piece of the pie, and it's things are overblown with regards to this. I'm against this. I'm opposed to this particular resolution down of Lakeshore. Well, who's in favor of supporting this? Who's opposed? Fine. Adopted. Let's go on now to 10.3 sub C. Well, that was short and sweet. Councillor Lalonde, be it resolved that Council approves the implementation of a joint compliance audit committee with participating municipalities located within the United Counties of Prescott and Russell for the 2018 and 2022 term. Seconded by Councillor Simon. Questions, Councillor Lalonde? Well, the reason I want to bring this to your particular attention is this. Will we have the opportunity to look into our proposed names of individuals to be sitting on this committee? Yes, Mr. Lalonde. If you adopt this tonight, most of those people consulted have already made us aware of their willingness to sit on this committee. Those names are in the documents forwarded to you. We have to go through the resolution process and also towards a public meeting process before recruiting specific members to sit on this committee. Formal selection will be ensured by clerks and members from the community at large. Anyone will be encouraged to put their names forward, and there are selection criteria that need to be respected that will identify the process as well as recommendations of all councils that take part in this particular process. Will there be a representative per municipality? That is our hope. But it could be that no one from a given municipality is interested in putting forth or manifesting his or her interest in taking part in the dealings of this committee. We do not know. What's been suggested is that 5 sitting members be nominated and an extra member for any case being brought on appeal. All those in favor then? Fine. Carry. Let's go on now to item 11.1, accounts payable. Councillor Belaguette. Be it resolved, Mr. Mayor, that accounts paid for the period of the 10th of February until the 11th of March 2018, the amount of $2,202,973 be adopted as recommended. Second by Councillor Lalonde. André Lalonde, any questions? Yes?
C'est que c'est le deuxième mois consécutif qu'on a le même montant et puis la même période.
I believe we have 2 similar type amounts.
Ligne 22, c'est
Human resources material.
Payment
payment 2 of 2
217
compensation review. It seems as if we're paying the same amount twice for the same services. Well, that's the project that Council tackled in the month of August last year to analyze all salaries paid out by employees that don't belong to any union or any of the unions that employees working for the city of Clarence and Rockland are members of. So we're talking about $1,200, yes. Line 58, I have another question. Line 58, APP Engineering, Subdivision Manual. Why? $5,932. Why did we spend that amount? Well, Mr. Mayor, these are for those design standards that we need to implement. We really had none set out that the City of Clarence and Rockland would respect. Now, these relate to subdivision developments and all future developments. They'll make use of those particular standards. All right. The other question I had was this item appearing on line 60, CH2M building for Limoges Water Steady. The amount of $12,582. I'm wondering if Limoges, the nation municipality, pays part of this. Yes, they pay 50%. You see, it all depends on the reason why this would have been done. There's a breakdown of costs and with regard to the commission of this study, it's a multi-phase study, for an example. Some costs were spread 70% to Limoges, 30% to Clarence. Others were split 50-50. But the City of Clarence and Rockland is invoiced by by this party involved that we invoice Limoges in turn. Do we have an idea as to the percentage that will be charged back to La Nation that's also involved in this? In this particular case, we're talking about 50%. I see. Fine. Concerning credit cards now, Mr. Mayor, we're up to 18 credit cards that have been issued to different town employees. I have a list of those credit card holders here, different numbers, and about 3 years ago we got together. There were 4 credit cards issued at that point in time, and we told ourselves that we'd get together 6 months from that point on to take a look. And we've come up with a very hefty amount paid out through those credit cards, and each and every amount, the amount, if I take a look at the first credit card, Director of Community Services, issued to the Director of Community Services, page 8 to 12, MasterCard account balance $14,310. This amount is repeated on many occasions. Now, do we have one statement for different credit card numbers? Mr. Desnoyers, well, firstly, when you took a look at the credit cards that are issued, some of those credit card accounts come up more than once. I know, and I verified all individual numbers. If you are to tabulate the numbers of credit cards issued, you should have it between 8 or 11 at the very most. Well, we're talking about 16 different credit card numbers here, sir. I see. If you take a look at the list before you, there are 16 that are set out. There are many that are repeated. But I've counted those credit card numbers that are invoiced, and there are at least 16. Well, there's about a month and a half worth of credit card balances. We're reviewing our credit card system, and all cards are now replaced And all members have a live access to their credit card invoices through the internet services that you'll be called upon to use from now. Reports will be modified so that people can easily understand what's owed, and balances will certainly be readily available. The older program ran from the 15th to the 15th, and the new program runs now from the 1st to the 30th of each and every month. Shall we be able to notice any changes as of next month? Next month, we'll still be using the old system, but I'll send you an updated list regard to the credit card holders. I believe we have a little bit less than 16, but all credit card holders have technically speaking, authority, the proper authority to make purchases. Our managers, for instance, in the finance department, have a delegation of power to purchase items. Those that have the authority or have delegated authority to purchase items are credit card holders. No one else. I didn't know also that we paid annual fees to issue credit cards to our employees. Well, I pay this. Well, I pay this. With regard to American Express. Well, it depends on your bank account. This is a fee of approximately $30 fee on a per card basis. If you add the cards, you're talking about $300 per month. I believe this particular program is much to the advantage of the City of Clarence and Rockland, even though we're talking about $30 per card. Actually, we've tabulated the expenses if we did not have to pay those fees, credit card fees, and let me tell you, if we were to pay direct bank fees, it would cost us much more. Again, we're buying items from Amazon, items ranging from $27 to $204. Mr. Mayor, let me add a pair of work boots, $160 locally purchased, would cost $23 or $27 in Amazon. I'm thinking about 3 businesses here in Clarence and Rockland, but sometimes the reverse holds true. And these businesses pay hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of taxes here. But we have to take a look as quickly as possible at what people here in Clarence and Rockland, not just Rockland, but Clarence and Rockland, we have merchants everywhere that would be given the opportunity to tender. At present, we rely on the government catalog to purchase our items. Why do we need to tenders outside of Clarence and Rockland? Why are we compelled to obtain tenders outside of Clarence and Rockland? That's the question I asked last time around. Well, this year, I was seeking a telephone case from $27.74 to $104. I went to the source, and there are hundreds of cell phone cases on sale here at the source in Rockland. They pay taxes here in Rockland. Well, I believe that there was a policy implemented requiring administration to come up with the least expensive option. Well, you know, when we're talking about phone cases, boots, work boots, and so on and so forth, why purchase through Amazon? We have businesses here that pay a great amount of taxes and would be in a position to readily supply us. Why go through Amazon for this? Mr. Mayor, people here in Rockland, or people here in Clarence and Rockland, are frustrated by the fact that we're not purchasing here locally, or purchasing very little. Mr. Boucher clarified matters for me today. For example, you know, just to order
Parce que
2
tu vas
loads
dépenser 500
of
$.
topsoil, you need to go to tender. That's ridiculous.
Mais c'est correct, ça, il n'y a pas de problème. On peut aller définition
fine.
dans
On
les
l'a chez
municipalités.
nous.
But look,
C'est ça.
we've got
Faudrait-
topsoil supply providers
Providers
here in Clarence and Rockland. And what I find curious also, Lowe's and the account of manager supplies and processes. Lowe's, 2 cabinet environments, $712 purchased at Lowe's. You know? Why would you? Well,
Il faut qu'il y ait ailleurs.
you know, if they don't have the items we seek, then we
Mais si au
if-
moins les
then
gens
we have to go
de
elsewhere.
notre
If at least
municipalité auraient
people
la
from
chance
our
de
municipalities
mettre
would be given the
ils n'ont pas la
opportunity
chance.
to
La
bid
réponse
for
que j'ai
this,
eue, là, j'ai eu une
they're
rencontre
not
avec la Chambre de
given
commerce
a
hier.
chance to bid for this. I
Ben,
met
si vous voulez vraiment avoir
Chamber
la
of
chance de
Commerce people
soumissionner, on va faire venir
yesterday,
un gars de Toronto qui va
and
venir vous expliquer de quelle façon.
I
Ben
told
là,
them, I said, if you
la-
want
la-
to
la plume
bid
informateur comme vous êtes faire.
on those contracts issued by the city of Rockland, I'll have a guy from Toronto come down to you good folks and explain to you good folks, our local merchants, to
C'est la réponse que j'ai eue, ça.
to give you an idea as to how to tender. That's the answer I got. I can't understand this, Mr. Mayor. No. We were told, that's it, this is what, these are the steps that we need to follow. I'd like to mandate town administration to come up with a bylaw saying that the town of the city of Clarence and Rockland prioritize our local merchants, its local merchants. Mr. Kehoe, we cannot do this, Mr. Mayor. It's against the law. It doesn't prevent you to go on the outside as long as our people are informed. Mr. Mayor, if I'm allowed to address the situation. Mr. Mayor, staff will always obtain local quotes when need be. And if they can't obtain 3 quotes, they need additional quotes and they'll have to go elsewhere. So Amazon, the Amazon related matter, I will definitely look into. And I'll contact our purchasing manager to determine why we're obtaining items from Amazon, even if prices are better. We should look at purchasing local items, even though it costs us a little bit more. But we have to come up with at least 3 tenders. You know, especially if we're talking about, you know, purchasing boots or work boots. I'd like our employees to be encouraged to purchase locally. I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll follow up on this matter, and we'll tackle this at greater length at the next meeting when I obtain all of the information that I need to obtain. Mr. Mayor, of course, I'm not aware of all of the businesses that do exist here in Clarence and Rockland, but there's one thing that's been difficult for me to understand in all of this. We know that it's very easy to obtain goods through websites, but local stores don't have local. Not all of them have, you know, detailed websites. So I'm wondering how much effort is put in searching for Clarence and Rockland businesses to
Well, let's just say, let's make an effort to encourage our own people.
purchase stuff from them. Well, let's just encourage our own people, and that's it. Now, with regard to MasterCard issuance, page 21.
Ça, c'est sous le directeur Community Services.
That's under Community
Autre-
Services.
L'entraînement, ice maintenance and equipment
Ice
training
making
pour
pellets
3
and
employés
equipment trading for 3
à
employees,
$158.
$1,158 each. Can you please explain to me what that entails? Well, these are the last 3 employees that we hired. The most recent employees we hired. This is a training that was offered. The cost involved an expenditure of $1,100 each, but we don't have to pay for their motel expenditures because the other training is offered through Guelph. Normally, they have to go through a 1-week training. It would have cost us 3-4 times the amount. It was a local course offered in Cornwall, so we pay for the course. It's a little bit more expensive because it's locally offered, but we don't have all the other related expenditures such as hotel rooms and so on and so forth. But what's the cost involved? So how to operate Zamboni machines? No, it's with regard to operational and maintenance issues, generally speaking, arising from the operation of an arena involving compressors, furnaces, and so on and so forth. How many days does this course last when it's offered? 3 or 4 days, I believe. I see. Any other questions then? All those in favor? Carried. Well, that's fine. Thank you.
Défi des villes intelligentes. Le deuxième papier, s'il vous plaît.
Let's go on to the next item. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Attendu que le sondage mené par le
Whereas,
citoyen, les commentaires de la communauté
the survey commissioned by the City of Clemson Rockland has revealed that well-being and health is of main concern, and whereas the preparation of a tender targeting health and well-being for smart cities be of primary importance, and whereas it is necessary to obtain the services of consultant in helping the City of Clemson Rockland in preparing its submission, more particularly targeting measures that need to be implemented to promote health and well-being, and to also implement an interactive database to this effect, and whereas Section C sub E of this bylaw authorizes exceptions with regards to the choice of experts to be retained, and whereas the City of Clemson and Rockland wishes to retain the services of Delta Planning and Design to supply required services with regards to the preparation of the Smart Cities tender, be it resolved that an amount of $10,000 be allocated stemming from the contingency fund to obtain those particular services, and be it also resolved that the Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to enter into an agreement with Planning and Design in keeping with the supply and services limits as identified in Appendix B of the Supply and Services Bylaw. Seconded by Mr. André Lalonde. Councillor Lalonde, any questions? Yes. This is a competition we decided to take part in, and we weren't supposed to enter into any expenditures as to that. To me, it's tantamount to, taking money from our contingency fund, to go to the casino, for example. If we can't function with our internal services, I don't think we should spend $10,000 to gamble and winning this competition. Mrs. Collier, I understand and recognize your struggle with this, and asked your council and council before, and I was told you need to hire a consultant, but at that point in time we feel that we didn't need to, because we'd consulted with the health authorities from the United Counties of Prescott and Russell, and between the last time that we discussed this with council, we've contacted them, and it was very difficult to get the statistics that we required to support our arguments. But this company that we found, we did a lot of research to try to find someone who could have statistics that we could work with. We need to come up a challenge with a challenge statement to help us to define a healthier community. They have statistics available to support our challenge statement and help us to proceed forward with our grant application. Mr. Darch has worked non-stop with this application. We feel we have a very good chance of being successful. We've done some analysis since we've last met with you about the statistics and the number of municipalities who will be applying. And I think that maybe I'll let Mr. Darch add some comments as to where we're at with this application. All right? Yeah. This has been an interesting process. You know,
first get into
when
it, I
you
think
just
when you read
get
the,
into it, I think when
the
you
application
read the application requirements and the
asking,
questions they're
seem very
asking seem to be
straightforward,
pretty
but
straightforward.
break it
But when
down,
you start breaking it
probably
down,
not,
it's probably far from that.
Our
Our community has spoken through our consultation process, and certainly transportation was number one.
But we don't have jurisdiction.
But we don't have any jurisdiction or control over that. I think that the last report that we had before you, we recommended to pursue health and wellness and the active transportation because the issue because it would come up very strongly in our community. So we have to build up a project and a submission around what's stressing our community and what the biggest issues are that are of concern to us. That's why we picked these. But active transportation and usually measures to improve health and wellness have been around. You know, health and transportation is certainly not new. So, having said that, though, you have to be able to communicate as to how you can go about doing something innovative. And that's where I personally struggle. I usually don't like to admit that I'm over my head in something like that, but I am. And I think the organization is. I don't think that we have the internal skill sets to identify how we're going to measure health and wellness benefits, how we're going to use technology. Maybe in the fullness of time we can obtain that information, but it's going to take time, and the clock is ticking. Now, when this firm was brought to our attention, and I saw their brochure, they touched on all of the bases and the things that we have to articulate. So we'll both have to work in filling in this form, whether it's information we have that we need to, or steps we need to take. And I think our only chance of success in this particular program is if we retain this external expertise. I would strongly recommend that Council support this recommendation because I think that this firm can make us turn the corner. Helen mentioned about the little analysis that we did recently about the odds of this, and it's interesting because I think first of all we started to look as to how many municipalities there are across the country because it's a countrywide competition. And I think the global search didn't come up with a number of municipalities, but they talked about population centers. And the way they defined that is it's a cluster of development that has a semblance of an urban area, population of at least 1,000 people, and a density of not less than 400 people per square kilometer. Sounds a little technical, but bear with me. We did some analysis on that, and we used that parameter. We look at populations less than 30,000, because I would think that we're going to target that prize category. If Council wishes to proceed with that, there are 876 population centers across the country. And when you look at that, you say, well, you know, what are 1 in 176 odds aren't so good, but when you look at each one of those provinces and territories, there are a lot of those population centers which are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I would doubt very much that cities and communities of that size are going to be able to apply for something like this. I then narrowed the range and said, okay, let's look at the number of municipalities in between 12 and 30,000 people. Now, from 176 initial number, it dropped down to 85. That's how drastic it is. So now I think that if we can put together a fairly good proposal using the innovation, the connected technologies that they're looking for, being able to measure health and wellness benefits, I think we might have a good chance. We certainly had encouraging discussions with the project leader from the federal government on this. I just don't like to say uncle, but I just think that we need this external expertise. I would like to specify, too, that the application on sale, you know, how many words, how many points are
Well,
accounted
your
for
challenge
this?
statement, for example,
How
that's
many
the
works
first thing.
or-
They've got 20
Well,
questions.
they have
you've got to
20
go through.
questions that you have to go
It's
through.
fairly
And it's fairly
comprehensive
comprehensive when you
But
get
your
into the
challenge statement
weeds,
is
you
probably
know.
one of the most key
But your
things you do.
comprehensive
That's 50
statement is
words.
probably the key things.
And it's gotta tell
50 words
what
is
are
what you
trying to
need.
accomplish and
What you're
are the
trying to
outcomes
accomplish,
you're
what are
gonna
the
get.
outcomes you're
And I
expecting
put
you're going
one
to
in
get.
our
And I
report
put
here.
one
I
in
don't
the
think it's a
report
work
here.
of
I
art.
don't
I
think
don't
it's a
think that's
work
gonna
of
be
art.
our final
I don't
product.
think it's going
we
to be
need
our
the
final
expertise
version.
from
I
the
think we need
outside to help
expertise from
shape
the
that.
outside to help that,
But
shape that for
every
us.
section
But
has
every
word
section
limits
has a
and that.
word
So you
limit.
gotta be very selective
You have to be
and-
very selective.
Well,
Mr. Ladon.
I fully
Well,
agree
Mr.
with,
Mayor,
Councillor
I fully
Berlin.
agree with Councillor Berlinghen
looking
on
at
this.
this,
I was
on the survey
looking
that we've
on this,
made,
on the survey that we've made.
About
About 98% of the responses we obtained were negative responses. And when we're saying that Clarence and Rockland increases active transportation by 50%, you have to remember that we only have 3 requests for bicycle paths. You know, bicycle paths, that's all we had. And if ever we want to improve this, do we have the necessary money on hand? If we undertake in doing so, you know, they'll read between the lines and meet with us to have bicycle paths set up in between all connecting villages. All in all, there were 41 complaints registered for transportation involving Highway 17 and 174. That corridor. And all we obtained were 122 responses. I have them all before me here, and I can't see how we're called upon or why we should spend $10,000 on something where we have nothing positive to send over to the approval authorities that might approve our request. Councillor Zent, Mr. Mayor, I'm in. I adopted the opposite view than the view shared by my colleagues. Often in the past, we had to obtain money for grants. I understand the process involved, but at least we have someone here that might help us win a piece of the pie. Is it playing the lottery? Yes, but if we win, we have one out of some 80-some chances. If we win, it's a small price to pay. Having an injection in this city, you know, if we can take a chunk of money and put it into everything else that we need to do, how much money is it going to free up for everything else? I think it's a good chance to take. I don't like to spend $10,000 for nothing. That's not what I'm saying. But how many times have we saying, let's go and bid something and let's make sure that we have everything on the table, making sure it's a winning bid. I'm
the amount of money that
willing to take the chance. Well, what's the amount of money that the city might get back? What's the total envelope? How many winners? Okay, they have 4 prizes. The top prize is $50 million, and then there are 2 $10 million prizes, and then there's the $5 million prize. Each category, well, there will be a short list of 5 prospective candidates that will be given $250,000 to prepare a final proposal. So let's say for the sake of argument, I've indicated to you we're targeting the $5 million prize. We're a municipality of 30,000 or less. We're targeting that. There will be 4 firms or 4 municipalities that will be shortlisted in that community. In that category, I apologize, and they'll each be given $250,000 to finalize this proposal. But the benefit here, you know, I don't think, you know, what maybe some of you are thinking that you're throwing away $10,000. Whatever analysis that this firm does for this $10,000, even if we're not successful, they're going to come up with ideas that we'll be able to use with our strategic planning. If you recall, the plan that you just approved had active transportation as a strategic priority. And this firm, from what I've seen, has expertise in cycling and transportation, how to measure things, how to adopt innovative technologies, and we can derive benefits from that. If you get at the $250,000 stage, you'll get into more details, and with more proposals as to that. And if you're really lucky and you win the prize, it's $5 million worth of infrastructure is significant to this municipality in relation to your cycling and pathways. So when I look at the odds, at first I wasn't feeling very good, 1 in 85. But I think we have a firm here that we can partner with and come up with some innovative ideas. The other point that I'd like to stress is this, Mr. Mayor. All of the work that this firm will do for us, should we not be successful this round, is not a one-shot deal. There will be another opportunity next year. We know for certain that there are 2 rounds involved that are going to be put out by the ministry involved. After that, we'll have an election. Things may change, but we know for sure that there will be 2 rounds involved. If we're not successful this year, we might enter at least into the next phase next year, and majority of the work will have been done. I've had a presentation by this firm in Toronto. It was very well done. Mr. Darch met with them, went through the entire application to make sure that they could do what we needed within the time frame, because the clock is ticking. Now we're about a month away. Mrs. Simard?
I'm kind of divided.
I'm having a hard time with $10,000 as well. If we wind up getting past and, getting into the we get to $250,000 will cost us more money to submit. If we go further, well, that $250,000 that we'll receive will allow us to go on. So we won't have to pay anything else. What we may find when we get to the $250,000 level, that we may retain this firm when all said is done to further this our plight along, if you wish. Well, if we get 250, you get 10 to pay back, certainly, because in essence it'll be part of what you present as the final product. Mr. Lalonde, we did the recreational master plan a few years back, which talked about active participation. Strategic plan also mentions active participation. We've gone through 4 sets of budgets, and not a dime has been spent on active transportation. This is our one shot, I believe, to try to at least make something happen, so that we can at least free up money to be able to do that, what needs to be done on roads and so on and so forth. But the only question that I have is, where are we going to take this money? Mr. Darch, we discussed this morning, because I remember that there was a budget item line of some $20,000 for active transportation study and so on and so forth. Is that still there? Can we use this incentive to take this from the contingency fund? Well, I think we're talking about, I had a discussion with Pierre. There was a $25,000 amount left or made available or available to us for research purposes. But that has been included in our transportation master study. And there's a problem in getting this awarded. Well, I don't think there's money there. Now, is there another funding source? Contingency is the first thing that was identified. I don't know. Pierre? Yes. I believe, well, there is a cycling reserve that could be used as well.
It's going to cost us money, but we've got a chance to get...
We have a better chance, listening to Mr. Darch, as he said, we have a good chance of getting it $10,000, even then the first one at $250,000. And whatever information we get, either from, with regard to stage 1 or stage 2, we can reuse.
I know we're looking to make
well,
ads in the regional
I believe that...
Morris Village. I know we've got a good amount.
Well, we've made some inroads with regards to our regional firefighter training plan. I don't know if we could tap into operational money set aside for that purpose, because we've made some good inroads with regards to this already. Yeah, well, the $10,000 matching amount. Well, that's been set aside for pathways and bicycle paths. That's in the reserve. If it's going to help us
accelerate the process,
I think we should take it from there and see what we can do from that point on.
Dernière question.
That's my recommendation. Last question. I'm not saying that we should not enter the contest. What I'm saying is that we've already done the survey. If we can't come up with the proposal given the data we have on hand, I don't understand why we have to consult with someone on the outside to come up with a proper request. I don't think we need to spend $10,000 to come up with an application. If we had 2 years to make a proposal, what do you think is going? What makes you think is going to increase our chances? The two main reasons that we need to reach out for help is that we need strong statistics on our existing situation. We have to be able to demonstrate to the federal government that our public has asked for what we are asking for, that our survey right now has asked for active public transportation, but our challenge statement says that we want to make our community healthier. And part of the results of the survey is that people were asking for more access for fitness and to demonstrate the level of fitness in the municipality. This is where this company will be able to help us. We went to the United Counties, we spoke to Dr. Paul, to Dr. Filio, and a number of other people also, and I spoke to actual statisticians to try and obtain some numbers to determine whether we could do this ourselves or not. It's beyond what we could do, and this company will be able to use recent census information to derive statistics about our fitness levels. The other reason that we needed to go was to start, or to do this, was to understand how that we were going to build in the technology aspects to this. There are a lot of things to look at. This company is actually tied into the bike or road bike corporation, I believe. Well, it's organized by the federal or provincial government, and there's a lot of technology that we don't know about that we have to demonstrate, because that's part of the aspect of this federal grant. Smart cities is to use technologies to deliver services. So those are the two reasons to resort to the services of this company. Now, across North America, well, look, they have 30 offices. They're actually in Ottawa this week. And they've done a lot of work in the States, and that appeals to me because they've done a lot of active transportation there and have introduced a lot of innovative things that probably have not migrated to Canada yet. And we've got to be able to show how active transportation is improving the health and wellness of our community. We have to show that it's innovative. It's a key component. I think we've stated we can do this ourselves, and I'm afraid that all we're going to do is to regurgitate what's been done all over the place. You're not going to get high ratings on this. They're looking for innovative technologies that can be transferable to other municipalities across the country. So I think we have to reach in to somebody who's got that expertise and tap that. Although I'd just like to consider changing the source of financing, and let's change this from the contingency fund to what Pierre has identified.
Well, Mr. Pierre, it's a 2017 bike trail.
2017 bike trails and map work project. There's money in there. We can make use of it. Fine. Moved by Councillor Zant and seconded by Councillor Levert. All those in favor?
I'm still on the fence.
I'm so on the fence. Well, even if I moved this resolution, I would still like to request a registered vote. Councillor Levert, Councillor Lalonde, Councillor Zant, and Councillor Grimard in favor. Fine then. Next item. Bylaws to amend the 2018 operational budget and also to adopt daycare fees. Yes. Very good then. So 12.2, let's go on to that. Be it resolved that Council adopt bylaw 2018-29 to amend the 2018 operational budget. Seconded by Councillor Levad. All those in favor? Carried then. Can I read the other one? Yes. Carried. Very good. Be it resolved that Town Council adopt bylaw 2018-33 being a bylaw to adopt daycare fees. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Any questions? Go ahead. Councillor Lalonde, you do have a question, or Councillor Levert? Well, I don't know. In light of the folks that gave us comments tonight concerning services offered by the daycare centers that they're dealing with, and before increasing their daycare fees, especially with regard to the Saint-Mathieu Daycare Center, to determine, I think it would be wise to determine whether there are some changes that will be brought to this particular area, you know, to resolve the matter of that, of the curtailed services offered to these youngsters. Well, what we'll be adopting will have no impact on the budget. Even though there are some changes brought about to the venue, the room, or the outside of the venue, has no impact on the financial situation of the daycare service. But it might have an impact, however, on the quality of services offered to children there that have to climb a set of stairs to go to the washroom. Mr. Boucher stated that he was going to meet with the school board authorities and issue us a report. Well, I'm just asking that this be delayed before increasing fees. Well, why one set of fee increases aside and vote for another? You have to vote this in one block. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask for a registered vote as to this. And let me tell you this, Mr. Mayor. It's going to cost those who have toddlers. It's going to cost them $12,500 to $13,000 to send their children to daycare centers in our area. If there are two children involved, it's double that cost. And extracurricular, it's going to cost a hefty amount also to send children to daycare centers. You were talking about $5,000, $7,800 in some instances. Well, Councillor Zant, we know where the problem lies. Are there any other solutions other than those solutions that Mr. Boucher has alluded to? Therein lies the problem. I'm certainly not in agreement. I don't like to vote for an increase of 11%. But when we're talking about the deficit that $200,000, $400,000, $500,000 that we need to, well, immediately this year, we have to offset a $231,000 deficit. If someone can come up with a way of offsetting those deficits and lowering tax rates, as things stand right now, all our hands are tied right now. I don't know what else to do. They told us that there's a deficit. We gave them a mandate to come up with a 0% deficit situation. Councillor Lalonde, well, given those costs, we're just asking the ladies here who to stay at home instead of working. They can't afford sending their children to daycare centers. This year and even last year, we hired an additional educator. And I do have full confidence in our town's administration, but there's something here that's from a priority standpoint that should be higher to consider with regards to Limoges and others. We should not compare our services that Ottawa offers. Ottawa offers all types of services, transportation, so on and so forth. You know, having children shuttled to the daycare centers and back home again. But we don't. Mr. Boucher, for those who had an opportunity to read provincial statistics that I sent it to everyone last Friday. Now, last week, we received the necessary information as to what happens with regards to daycare centers on a provincial level. Have you had the opportunity to read the contents of this matter? It was a 12-page initial file that was sent to me. I simplified it or pared it down to 6 pages. The service offered is a unionized service. 92% goes into salaries and benefits, or should I say 83%, should I say. 17%, a part of that goes to pay for part of my salary, part goes to pay part secretarial services. 10% left for food, toys, day-to-day business. I can't cut into the operational budget. We're at a strict minimum right now. I know that in Limoges and in Embrun, we're dealing with non-unionized employees, and they don't have the same amount of operational hours. We might seek and cutting down operating hours. Instead of 6 o'clock in the morning, it might be 7 or 8 a.m. But you see, but those people that work in the city of Ottawa, they don't have the opportunity to leave their children at 7 and then get to work on time in Ottawa. Also, people need to leave their homes to get to work. They have to leave much earlier from home than those living in Ottawa. But in Ottawa, they have all those services that are implemented that allow people to spend more time with members of their family. I'm no more happier than you are with this. We have no other opportunities to auto-finance or to self-finance this than what we have tonight. No other opportunity given to us. Well, Mr. Lalonde, what are the changes that you're proposing? Well, definitely not 11%. Maybe up to 5%, but no more. But yeah, but you'll incur a deficit then. Well, we have incurred a major deficit with public transit, $400,000. We're receiving a grant to offset that. That's the municipal share, but it's offset by provincial grants. Taxpayers do pay for. Do we decide to have all taxpayers pay for daycare services? Well, really, we're not taking care of, mothers. Don't forget fathers. That's right, fathers' needs also. Well, you see, we can't split things down the middle. I thought this would come up because we discussed this matter beforehand. When I had occasion to sit down and think about this $1,100 to send a toddler at daycare center, and even more to send a child, a preschooler. But the same rule prevails in all other daycare centers. Well, certainly not in all of Eastern Ontario. It costs a bit more in New Orleans. Mr. Mayor, we're continuing to state all problems related to that. I just want to get to solutions. If we can't cut hours of working staff, Mr. Lalonde has asked that we go to a registered vote. If it's defeated, let's kick this back to the department to come up with a solution. I apologize for having cut you off, Mr. Mayor, but we have incurred a deficit here. So we're voting on this. As solutions go, it's not the best, but it allows us to get to a zero deficit situation. Let's go ahead with the vote then. Councillor Lalonde, I'm opposed. Councillor Zant, I'm in favor. Councillor Grimard, opposed. Councillor Lalonde, in favor. Mrs. Simard, opposed. Councillor Levert, opposed. Mr. Berlinguet, in favor, and I'm in favor. 4-4, Mr. Mayor. It's a tied vote. Don't you have a... So we have to talk about solutions then. Well, we have to cut hours of working staff. We have to cut we might ask those taking care of this to come up with recommendations. Mr. Boucher, we can head left or right as much as we can. There are two solutions. We have to increase rates or ask taxpayers to pay for these services. All taxpayers. If you're cutting in You know, if you're cutting working hours, you can't satisfy those that are working in the city of Ottawa that need to drop off their youngsters at 6 a.m. and that can make it on time for work instead of dropping them at 7 a.m. I've always stated that the municipality should be required to pay a part of this service as it does for other services. Madam Collier, if you were to give me a further month, let's say that instead of 11%, we can come up with a scenario, you know, 8%, 6%, and let's think about, take a look at the municipal share as to what's being paid. 6% or 8% of increase, what's the difference, and how much is it going to be, and is it going to be paid by the taxpayer at large then? Well, I believe that offering those services to our residents will encourage economic well-being the same as public transportation. If we look at the benefits derived from offering proper daycare services and public transit services, we're going to improve well-being of our community. We have fiscal responsibility, however, to adopt those steps that are more fiscally responsible. I believe it would be unfortunate to increase this, and we have to take a look at new solutions. Maybe increase the municipal share and reduce the municipal share elsewhere. But it's an economical driver for us. If there's an underlying economical driver, Mr. Lalonde has suggested 5%. You'll have to figure if we were to increase by 5 or 6%, how much the municipal share would be increased by. Well, it would still leave us with $115,000 if we were to go with that, $115,000 shortfall. Well, if you want to come up with an interim measure this year and address this situation on a full-time basis for future budgets, we have to take the municipal share, the contingency fund set aside, $130,000, and pay out of that. Well, we have 900 children. There's a small share paid out by the United Counties, and if we take a look at transportation services, we give out $1,000 for each individual that takes public transit. I think it behooves us to take a look at paying 100%, at offsetting 100%, and tapping into municipal resources to do so. Mr. Lalonde has previously suggested 5% increase. Well, we just resolve half of the problem and no more right now. We might come up with an additional month and try to find money elsewhere. You know, we always come up with money in some similar type situations. We always do. Mrs. Collier will revisit this issue in about a month's time. Fine. Deferred items, then let's go on now to other items. All those in favor of deferred items? Yes? Yeah, well, we've deferred this. All right, we're covered everywhere. Confirmatory bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw 2018-1 being a confirmatory bylaw for the regular meeting of Town Council held on 21st of March 2018 be adopted. All those in favor, seconded by Councillor Leverne. Adjournment called at 9:35.